and welcome to the sew along for the S9478, which is Madalynne's newest pattern with Simplicity. View A, which is pictured here, is a one-piece bathing suit. It features a V neckline with, I'm going to call this a modesty panel. You can make this without the modesty panel as well if you want like a super plunge deep V neckline. And then view B, which is not pictured here on the mannequin, has a cutout underneath the bodice area. This sew along is going to be broken down into two parts. So today I'm going to be going over how to find your size, cutting and what pattern pieces you should have, fabrics and supplies, and then we're going to do some pre-sewing so that when we get into the second session or the second video, we will go right into sewing. The great thing about this pattern is it is a really quick and easy sew. So if you've never sewn swimwear before, this is a great first project to get into the world of DIY swimwear. And a lot of the techniques you're going to repeat them over and over again. So it's not, learning how to sew this type of elastic versus this type of elastic and then moving on to that type of elastic. The S9478 only uses one type of elastic, but you get a lot of practice with sewing it. So by the time you're done with S9478, you are going to be a master at sewing fold over elastic. So let's get started. The first thing I'm going to go over is how to find your size. So one thing that I will note is that our fit model, who is wearing this bathing suit, view A and view B in the product photos, she is wearing a size extra large, and her full bust measurement is a 42, her under bust measurement is a 36, and I believe her hip size is a 38. So that's just a good frame of reference. I'm going to go over how to find your size. So I have a tape measure on the mannequin here, and finding your size and knowing what size to cut is very intimidating for a lot of people, and that's because in lingerie, in swimwear, really in ready-to-wear in general, there is no standardization with sizing. So you might wear one size in one company and another size in another company, and you get frustrated because you think you're two different sizes. Really, those companies just have different size charts. So what's important is to know your measurements and then check out every brand or every company's size chart before cutting out your pattern or buying whatever from ready-made. So it's really easy. So you're going to pretend that the camera is a mirror, and you're going to turn to the side, and you are going to take your full bust measurement, and you are going to make sure that the tape measure is level all the way around. Now when taking your measurements, you want to make sure that you're not wearing a padded bra. You can wear a bra or no bra. I suggest that if you are full busted to wear some sort of bra. It just can't be padded. Make sure that the tape measure is taut enough that it's staying level, which if I look at the mirror here, it is not level. That is a little bit better. You want to make sure that the tape measure is taut, but it's not causing any indentations on the skin. You also want to make sure that you're at a normal breath. You're not breathing in because you're really nervous about the measurements, or out. Just be relaxed. So once you take your full bust measurement, you are also going to take your under bust measurement, which is right underneath the bust, pretty much your rib cage. So you're going to take that measurement. Again, you're going to make sure that the tape measure is level all the way around, meaning that it's parallel to the floor and not falling down like that. And if it's tight enough, it will stay parallel to the ground. And then you're going to take your waist measurement. Now, the thing with waist measurements is that people often think it's where their belly button is. So your waist isn't always where your belly button. Your waist is the smallest part of your torso area. Usually it's the area where if you bend, it's where you crease. Not always, but most of the time. So you're going to take your waist measurement. And then you're going to take your hip measurement. And your hip measurement is the widest part of your bottom area. So for everybody, some people might carry their butt tissue fat up here, or some might carry it a little bit lower. You just want to make sure that it's at the widest part. And then you're going to take those measurements and you are going to compare it to the size chart. I will say that if you are in between sizes or you're on the cusp of one size versus the other, size down. I find that people like bathing suits when they're a little bit tighter. One, because when they get wet, they get a little bit looser. And two is that if you got it, flaunt it. So you want it to be a little bit smaller. I would err on the side of smaller versus larger. Okay, so that is how to find your measurements, how to find your size. Now let's go into supplies, cutting, and all that jazz. Okay, so let's go over fabrics, linings, supplies, and other tools that you need to cut out your pattern. So I am working on View A, and I cut out a size extra small for two reasons. One, I'm gonna do a little bit of selfish sewing, so I'm gonna make myself a bathing suit. Two, it's easier to keep these pattern pieces, since they're smaller and extra small, on the one frame. Once I get into bigger sizes, it's hard for you to see everything on camera. So I have here, I have the panties back on View A. I have the center front, bodice front, and the bodice side front. I have a swimwear lycra. So you want to look for lycra, swimwear lycra, dance lycra. Most likely you will be purchasing it online or dance stores too. Sew shops that have like dance wear often have fabrics for swimwear. We also sell it on our website. So I have one layer of my lycra, and then all my pieces are lined with stretch mesh. So you can use, there are a couple options for swimwear when in linings. So you can use stretch mesh, you can use power net, or there is something called halenka, which is a swimwear linings. It's a lining that is specifically for swimwear. The reason why I'm using stretch mesh, which is the standard lining, is one, I'm a small cup size, so I can use it for all pieces. Two, I use a lot of stretch mesh, so rather than buying a lining specifically for swimwear, why not stash bust and use what I already have? If you are a full busted, meaning C cup, D cup, G cup, H cup, or larger, I would suggest using stretch mesh for all the pieces except for the cups. You might want to use power net. You want to line it with power net to add a little bit more support. That is up to you. I find that with our plus size and full bust models and fit models, they don't mind using stretch mesh. Again, it's swimwear, so they're not looking for as much support as a bra, and usually they're going to be lounging on a beach, so they don't mind using stretch mesh, but that is completely up to you. So I used a rotary cutter. This is a 28 millimeter. You can buy this on Amazon. You can buy it at sew shops, your local sew shop, Joann's, Hobby Lobby. I use this to cut everything. It makes it so much easier. If you prefer using scissors, that's fine too. So before I cut all this out, what I did is I laid out my fabric, I laid out my lining, and then I spray basted them together using this spray basting. One of my preferred brands is Otis 505 spray adhesive. It just makes it a lot easier when working with the main fabric and the lining fabric from them not shifting. Now there are some people who do not like using spray based, and that is completely okay. I don't have any problems with it gunking up on my needle or my machine. It does get on my cutting mat, and I do have to be cognizant of cleaning my cutting mat, but other than that, I love using my spray adhesive. So as you can see here, I've actually spray basted these together, the lining and the main fabric. So I'm just treating them as one going forwards. I did that for the, again, this is view A. So you can see here I have my panty back cut out. So all pieces are aligned with my stretch mesh. I have my panty front, or my bikini front really, but we're calling it panties front. I have my bodice portion. I also have my back. And then I also have the modesty panel. The only thing I didn't cut out is my gusset. and that's just because I forgot. So you want to make sure that you have your gusset, that's the main fabric, backed with the lining fabric. So this is view A, so I will show you what you should cut out for view B. So for view B, I'm going for like a whole different look. So I got the black and white, and then I got like full on color for this one. I'm gonna have a lot of bathing suits this summer. Let's see here. So I have the panty front, Lycra, backed with stretch mesh, pink stretch mesh too. I have my back piece. Then I have my bodice side front, my bodice front. And then I have the, what are we calling this piece? Midriff front as well. I have my bodice back. And then I have my crotch lining, or my gusset. I don't need two, I just need one. Okay. And that's it. So those are the pieces that you should have cut out. So for the pre-sewing, and I will go to the machine and show you how I'm sewing this, but I'm gonna just show you right now what should be sewn together. So first up is that for both view A and view B, for pre-sewing, you are going to sew the front to the back. At the side seams, you're going to use 1/4 inch seam allowance, straight stitch, serge it if you have a serger, and you are also going to sew the gusset the same way. So straight stitch, 1/4 inch seam allowance, serge. For both view A and view B, sew the panties that way, or the bottoms. Then for the top, you are going to sew the side front to the center front. Now this wasn't cut on the fold, I got to recut that, but this should be on the fold. So you're going to sew side front to center front, and you are also going to sew it to the back. At the side seam, right here. That's for view B, and then for view A, you're going to do the same thing. You're going to sew the side front to the center front, and then the front to the back at the side seam. I will go ahead, I'll sew all those together, and then I will show you what it should look like after. Okay, Okay, so let's look at what I have pre-sewn. So I sewed the bottom or the panties together at the side seam and the gusset seam for both view A as well as view B. If I turn this inside out, all seam allowances were 5/8 of an inch, and then I serged them, and when I serged them, I cut off, I cut off about 3/8 of an inch because my serge is 1/4 of an inch wide. If you don't have a serger, that's fine. You can press your seam allowances to one side and zigzag stitch them down, or you could just leave them unfinished. These fabrics don't fray, so they won't fray, and you won't have your bathing suit unraveling. So let's look at the top portion. So this is what I sewed together. I sewed the center front seam, or the center front bodice to the side bodice. I used a straight stitch, and you might be wondering, why would you use a straight stitch on stretch fabrics? So you can use a straight stitch on vertical seams because you don't stretch vertically, you only stretch horizontally. I also sewed the midriff portion using a 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, and at this point you can trim this part off on the side bodice because we will be finishing this with fold over elastic. So when we get to the fold over elastic portion, this will be flipped up, and this will be finished with fold over elastic. And then I sewed it at the shoulder seams. And now let's look at the other bodice. So I sewed the center front piece. Maybe it's easier if I did this way. So I sewed the center front piece to the center front bodice to the side bodice, and then the side bodice to the back bodice at the side seam. I serged them as well. And now once I've done that, I can sew it together at the shoulder seam. If your shoulder seams don't match and that the front is a little bit wider than the back, that is okay. We are going to center that back on the seam and then sew it with 5/8 of an inch seam allowance and then serge it as well.